Well, good afternoon. In first of all, to thanks the WavEC with this opportunity to stay here with all, and thanks to the embassy, the Norwich embassy, to the support to this event. You are in this panel. You are going to talk about the public acceptance and the community engagement. And I think that when the WavEC invited me, I think that is the reason why he invited me to stay here. It's because at Peniche, Science 206, 207, we have accepted and a project of Finland. And the first meeting, as you have, it's with all of the stakeholders of Peniche, with the fishermen, with the association, the representative, and so on. And the way that we have choose, it's a good way because we have share all the information with the stakeholders to understand what was important. And then there was not legislation, and we have made the relationship between the community, between the government, and in the last year, you have approved the RIP, the recognition of public interest for the wave roller. But it's not for me that you are waiting, and I present the first intervention, Lia Vasconcelos. Lia Vasconcelos is a professor at the Department of Science and Environment Engineering of the University of Lisbon. And in this context, she coordinated the MAR-GOV. It's a Portuguese program. It's a project aiming the development of a collaborative model for governance for marine protect areas. My English, it's not so good. My Portuguese is better, and French too. But with your support, I think it's we made a good session. Please.
Okay. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for WavEC for the invitation, and it's with pleasure that I'm here. The project I'll be talking about, and I'm just going to talk about a small part of the project, that is the part that has to do with governance and the involvement of stakeholders. But this was a project that was on the ground between the end of 2008 to 2011, and the idea was to construct a model of collaborative governance for a marine protected area that had a conflict. There was a conflict there, and it won the prize of Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation and the Lisbon Oceanary for the sustainable development of the oceans. And the idea we had was we work on the ground with people, we involve stakeholders, and we try that they can produce contributions that are worthwhile for study projects or plans. And in this case, we were challenged by the fact that we need to overcome a conflict that was on the ground. So we start in the department stage that was a top-down marine protected area that was imposed top-down. There was a lot of conflict, and people complain about a reduced dialogue process. And the main impact was on the artesian fisheries communities. So therefore, there was conflict. The area is a privileged area for the ones that know it. And the structure of the project, as I told you, is a complex project. Adds governance, citizenship, and dynamic spatial support. The dynamic spatial support was the art part of the project with sustainable indicators, GIS, and participatory modeling. I will be talking today about governance, participation, collaboration, and decision making. So, the point was, how could you construct over a conflict, and how could you disconstruct the conflict, and how could you overcome the myths that had been creating along the conflict? Because when there is a conflict, people radicalize positions, and frequently they also build up myths that somehow break the process and doesn't allow it to evolve it. In this case, for example, one of the myths was that currents with pollution were coming from the south estuary, and the fishermen complained that that was what prevent and kill the fish. And the scientists said no, because the currents go south, that's impossible. So we brought someone that explained that part of the year the currents go to the north, part of the year the currents go to the south. And that myth was overcome, and that's a way to make the stage better for dialogue. The objectives were to articulate the different kinds of knowledge, and frequently we just in our projects are supported by the scientific knowledge. And what we wanted was also to bring the tech and the LEC, the traditional ecological knowledge and the local ecological knowledge, and construct a more collaborative solution. Involving dialogue the key stakeholders, contribute to the empowerment of the participants, and promoting changing agencies. During that process, we involve a huge number of stakeholders, from users, the technical scientific community, policymakers, and we work in these different spheres. We collectively build the agenda with the issues the people thought it were important to discuss. We build a vision, and we define the action. The multiple learnings that we produce involving the users, we had several formats. One was the forums, and in the forums everybody could be there and participate. The others were workshops and meetings, mostly with the users, and that allowed for the disconstruction of myths and the collective discursive building. So, as you can see, this was the way people work. We didn't have a document from start. People construct the document, or better, they construct the discourse along the process. So during the session they propose, they select the issues they want to talk about, they hierarchize the issues that somehow fed the agenda, the collective agenda, and they also contribute. For example, this was a contribution of the fishermen for the Green Book of the reform of the common fishing policy, and it was a way to show them that they had something to contribute, and a way for them to speak out in big public audience, because at the beginning of the process they will never speak out in a public audience. Nowadays they express themselves, what's rather positive. We also involve managers, and we had panels that was a more restricted meetings, where we try to articulate discourses and articulate actions. With the scientists, we also try to articulate the works that were being developed, share results and experience, and build articulate forms of resource. During the first period, so when we went to the ground, that was the second part of 2009, the first part of that period we were working only with the fishermen, and everybody else were questioning when were they going to have a possibility to be in the forum and be part of the process. And so we launched an interactive online interaction where people could ask the questions they wanted to see answered. For that we collect 231 questions. We categorized them, they fed the agenda, but they also were answered, the ones that were possible to be answered by law or by the managers, were answered directly and given to the participants. So the whole process was started with interviews and online interactions that somehow allow us to map the conflicts and the stakeholders that should be involved and define the issues of the collective agenda. Then the collaborative process was led by professional facilitation, face-to-face dialogue, in open forums, expert panels, meetings and workshops, and thus produce something that's rather important for people to get autonomous and go on with the process. That are the outcomes: empowerment, trust building and knowledge. They also produce instrumental results, in this case the outputs, with strategies and actions, management indicators and the model of co-management. So, for the model of co-management, the instrumental result was a satellite structure of co-management that somehow articulated to the one that was already there, expanding the strategic council of the protected marine area. Another instrumental result was to adjust the commercialization system, and it's something they are working in now, following the project that already is not more on the ground. So why are important this process? Because people get involved, they create trust, they build trust, they get autonomous, and they get empowered. And after that, they also get more autonomy to go on with the actions they have defined. They also create institutional capital. In this case, the Fishermen Association that was dying, it was kind of very weak when we start the process, is now consolidated, and they are following up the actions they had defined during the process. The other thing, people get ownership of the process, and even for the managers of the area, before we left the process, they were very eager that we solve a couple of issues, and they appropriate the process and call us to solve a couple of questions. At the same time, it's a learning process. They learned they could work with each other. It was with surprise that we found that some of them didn't understand at the beginning they could talk to the opposers and to the opponents. So they came to us and said, that's very strange, but I can talk to him and he has a completely different opinion. Yes, because you don't have to change your opinion, but it's important that you listen to the other perspective. So this accounts for 170 contact hours in this collaborative process. And by the end, we had to homogeneize the ones that contribute to the process, because people that are involved in the process and come to the forums, they could be watching a TV or they could be watching a match, but they really came and gave the best of them and contribute to the process. So we brought some people that were from Galicia, also setting up a marine protect area, and we homogenized by the number of hours that each participant was in the process. What are the challenges we have? First of all, we need to accept that other types of knowledge are important in complex contexts, and if we can really find a way to create a constructive dialogue, we can introduce this type of knowledge in the solution. Second, it's important to be prepared to negotiate and to develop documents jointly. And also, the issue that still is something to reflect is how to respond timely to a collaborative proposal, because we had several collaborative proposals, but it's still very hard because the institutions are slower and sometimes don't respond in time, and that creates a lot of frustration. So I think people matter, and we can involve them in a constructive way. They can bring their knowledge, and our society needs to make the most of the knowledge that already exists. And for that, we have to create some ways to work together, but in a way that contributions can be worthwhile for the results, and collaboration is important. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Leah, about with this methodology, and to thanks your work, and I offer you the wave of super tubes from Peniche with mackerel. It's canned fish from Peniche, and now we go to Norwich with Trine Ulla about the experience and the way forward with high wind concepts. She's the head of floating wind of the Statoil, and she has more than 25 years of experience from the energy sector, holding numerous management positions in project development, operations and marketing. And we are waiting for you.
Since I'm going to talk only about one turbine, I'm not going to focus very much on stakeholder management. I'm rather giving you the experience we've had from this project in Norway, and I'm also going to tell you a little bit about our company. Statoil is a large international energy company who has offices in 36 countries. We've actually celebrated our 40th anniversary this year. So the company was founded by the Norwegian state, more or less when we found oil on Norwegian continental shelf. So since then we've moved out of Norway, and over the last decade we've also started developing renewable energy. So what is our strategic direction when it comes to renewables? What we are focusing on is, you can hardly see it, can you? But it says it's offshore wind and carbon capture and storage. And the reason why we are focusing within these two areas is that this is where we see that we can utilize the competence that we have gained over 40 years offshore in Norway and outside of Norway. So we are trying to leverage our position as a technology-based company that has a lot of offshore experience. So we hope that we have a lot to contribute with when the offshore wind industry is being developed. A little bit about the projects that we have right now. First of all, this year we started producing from our Sheringham Shoal wind farm, which we have developed in the UK. It's a 317 megawatt power plant consisting of 88 3.6 megawatt turbines. This was our first commercial scale project for which we have been operators, and this is a shallow water project, and we have learned a lot from this project. Now we have embarked on a new project which is called the Dudgeon. We've just acquired this project, so what we hope to do now is to build on the experience we have from the Sheringham Shoal project and actually use all that competence in developing the Dudgeon project. It's being consented and can be developed up to 560 megawatts, but we haven't decided how large it's going to be as per yet. And then we have an asset called the Dogger Bank, which we own together with 3 other companies. It's 3 utilities. It's Statkraft out of Norway, it's RWE from Germany, and it's SSE from the UK. So we own a 25% share each in that project. It's a huge area, but it's 100 kilometers from shore, 120 actually. So it means it will be a challenge. You will have to seek new methods on how to operate these facilities. It's a huge area, and it could potentially develop up to 9 gigawatts of wind power, covering 10% of the electricity need in the UK. But these are all shallow water projects, which are not so relevant for Portugal. What is relevant for Portugal, though, is the experience we have with the high wind project. And actually, I know a lot of you know a lot about wind float, but this was actually the first floating full-scale demonstration project in the world. And it started producing 3 years ago in 2009. It's just a slender cylinder. It's a very simple construction. It's a spar buoy, and it sticks 100 meters below the sea line. And then the tower on top is 60 meters, and the blade length is 42 meters. So it's 100 meters above and 100 meters below the sea line. It's anchored by 3 mooring lines, and it's installed on 200 meters water depth. We've had a very, very positive experience with this installation, and actually last year, in 2011, which was the first year where we had sort of tested out all the facilities and could run it in really full operation and push the installation, if you like, production-wise. We had a capacity factor of 50%, meaning it produces it's one of the best performing turbines that Siemens have delivered of this size in the world. So it's a very, very good result, and I think a lot better than you can expect to see from an onshore wind farm. And that's one of the things that is an advantage with floating, is that you can actually place these installations where the wind is at its best. And this is placed in a very good wind location, because it's blowing from all sides. You can capture all the wind that is blowing, and it's blowing almost continuously. It's also very harsh conditions. Wave-wise, I think maybe a bit less than here in Portugal, but we haven't compared the conditions exactly, but it's pretty rough conditions. It's 10 kilometers from shore outside Stavanger and Haugesund. Last year, we had a couple of really rough storms. In one of them, this installation saw wave heights of 19 meters. 19 meters and 40 meters per second of wind. And we were producing, I think the average speed was close to the maximum criteria for the turbine, 25 meters per second, so we were actually producing under these very rough conditions, but not all the time. The fact that it's floating has had no negative impact on the performance of the turbine. And it's actually lying very stable in the waters. You cannot, with your bare eye, actually see that it's floating. It actually looks like a bottom-fixed installation. So we now consider this concept to be verified, and what we are embarking on now is more the commercialization of the project. How do we bring this very good idea, which was, by the way, also quite expensive and too expensive for deployment one by one. So how do we bring it to a commercial scale? How do we bring it to a commercial phase? What we're planning to do now, we have the results from the high wind demo, and we can use these and have used these now to optimize the concept. And we've actually prepared a 3 megawatt design and also a 6 megawatt design. And the new design, as you can see, has a larger turbine on top and a shallower draft, so it doesn't stick as far, as deep as the other one. And these are optimizations that we have done because we have now verified all our design tools, and so we're able to see how we can move things forwards. So the next step now will be to develop a pilot park, and we're looking at several options for that, alongside with what you are doing with the WindFloat project here in Portugal. And then, of course, the future goal is to develop commercial scale wind farms, and we think that should be possible maybe in an 8 to 10 years time frame. And then you will really take advantage of the economy of scale for this. And we actually believe that this will be competitive with conventional fixed bottom solutions, which you have deployed in large scale, especially in the UK. So what is it that makes it more attractive if you have a mature market and in a large scale? First of all, we can scale up the design. We're all moving towards larger turbines, so that means fewer installations. You can standardize your construction. You can optimize your fabrication. And of course, the advantage of floating is that you can do a lot more of the assembly work inshore in the protected waters, or even onshore, as you are doing with WindFloat. And this saves a lot of money for offshore wind. And also you can install it where you have better winds. This reduces the cost and gives you higher income. We're looking at 2 alternative locations for a pilot park, one of them in the state of Maine in the US and the other one in Scotland. And the size of it would be between 12 and 15 megawatts. That's according to the current plan. And we hope to start producing in 2016. There we'll verify the scaled-up design and also optimize the installation work and assembly work, so that we will reduce the construction risk for future scale parks. I'm soon finished.
5 minutes.
So, what's the potential for floating wind? This is a map of more or less the whole globe. And everything that is from middle blue, or actually you can see the 60 to 100 meter mark there, is actually ideal for floating wind. So there is an unlimited market for floating wind. It's actually the shallow water wind that has a limited market. So in conclusion, we see a significant global potential for floating wind, and we also think that it can be very important to develop the local supply chain, and that it can be developed at the location where you're operating. And we believe that floating wind will also be cost competitive with fixed bottom solutions in the future. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Tina, and another from. And now we have Gareth Davis, and he went to speak about the example of the Orkney. And some years ago, I stayed with him at Stromnest in the pilots on the WavEC, the zone of test, where our wave roller was tested too. And when I stayed with you, I bought the puffins to my daughter. It's a bird, a special bird from the Orkney. Gareth Davis, it's from a company, Aquaterra. It's okay, Aquaterra. And he's based in Orkney, as I tell. Gareth is managing director of Aquaterra and serving on the boards of the Orkney Renewable Energy Forum, as well Scottish Renewables, and we are waiting for you.
So I just want to confirm for anybody that's an environmentalist that these puffins were not alive. They were made out of fabric and material. So he wasn't exporting live birds to Portugal. So what I want to do is return again to the role that communities can play in this industry. And in Orkney, we've been at this industry now for around 25 years. And hopefully we've made some progress in that time that I want to share with you. But it's also taking us to some interesting places in terms of how we might move forward. So the reason that Orkney is very keen on renewable energy, and marine energy in particular, is laid out here. It's about jobs and sustainable employment for a rural area, a rural part of Scotland that needs jobs. So that's our primary motivation. It's not the energy, it's about jobs. And in the last 10 years in particular, we've been through a technology pathway that started quite rightly with, I don't know if I have a pointer. Oh, sorry. Okay. If you see the top picture there, this is the first wave roller. So it's a little bit smaller than the one that's just got in off Peniche. You could lift it up with your hands, and I think the first installation vessel was four Finnish strong men walking into the sea and putting it into the sea. This was the first installation technique. So since that time, a lot of machines have been tested, and there are now 16 wave and tidal machines that have taken place. And these have involved over 600 marine operations, which is a tremendous experience about installing wave and tidal machines. This work has been undertaken by now over 220 people who are employed in Orkney in the marine renewable sector, and you can see here the types of jobs that they have. And these jobs are fantastic, but they come with a responsibility, because now each month Orkney has to earn £500,000 to pay for all of these people that are now working in the sector. So very soon the idealism changes to reality. And most of this work is supported by the testing that's gone on in EMEC. There's a commercial leasing round which supports a little more, and what's also interesting is already Orkney has had to export its expertise to other parts of the world in order to support some of these jobs. So we become part of the global family looking at marine energy. And as we look forward to the future, at the moment there is a plan for around 1,600 megawatts of wave and tidal energy to be installed in our waters, and we think that that will require a workforce of 1,000 people in Orkney, in our community. And these are the types of jobs that we foresee. There's engineers, there's scientists, managers, you can see here. And most of those people are going to have had previous experience of maritime construction, because as any of you know who've been at sea with wave or tidal machines, this is incredibly difficult work, and we need all the experience that we can get to make it work. And we have 20%, we have the 200 people so far out of that 1,000 people. So we're making good progress. Now the reason that we've made progress is that it's taken money, and somebody has been prepared to pay that money. And if you look at the total investment in marine energy in Orkney, it's over £200 million that's been spent so far getting those 16 machines in the water. And what's interesting is of that £200 million, £40 million of it has come from the local community, from local people, from the local authority. So Orkney hasn't just been a place where people have come to do their work. Orkney has been a place that's invested alongside the technology companies, the utilities, alongside government in making this work. And I'm going to now talk a little bit also about wind, because Orkney is not just blessed with waves and tides, but it's also blessed with great winds. And I think there's a really interesting story here about where investment might come from in the future. Because I've got two scenarios here, one around large wind turbines and one around micro turbines. And it's not a typo, there are now 700 micro turbines in Orkney. Orkney is a population of just 20,000 people. So if you think of a community that size, and we have 700 micro turbines, each of those cost around £25,000 to install. I've actually converted it to euros here. So there's been an investment of 21 million in micro turbines. What that's meaning is it's transforming the economy, and people are beginning to take money that they would have previously put into pension schemes. And I mean, how many people here pay into a pension scheme? And your money goes into the stock market, stocks and shares. How many people invest in pensions? Do you have pensions in Portugal? Am I the only? You must have pensions, yeah? Okay, so you all have pensions. How many of you know all of the stocks and shares that your pension holds? If you'd all had your hands up, I suspect all of them would have gone, because like me, you probably don't know where your money's getting invested. So in Orkney, people have looked at the credit crunch, the crash we had in the stock market, and they say, okay, would I rather invest in a company that I know nothing about, or would I rather invest in energy that can be produced in my local community? And you can see here that they're voting with their pockets and putting their money into energy. So in onshore wind, we've seen an investment of 66 million pounds from local people and the local government in onshore wind. And the reason is because wind is now seen as a safe investment, or reasonably safe. Because none of these micro turbines, for example, have been in existence long enough. None of them have been through the 20-year life cycle. They all say on the badge, this will last for 20 years, but nobody knows that. So there's a degree of risk there. So if that much capital can be mobilized within a community, maybe we need to think about how we can start mobilizing capital from within other communities. And Orkney isn't particularly rich. It's just a place where there's lots of energy. And also, importantly, it's also an island. And it means that there's a collective will for things to happen. And what has happened in terms of wind capacity is we've now risen to the point where this year we generated 70% of our electricity from renewables, and we installed another 15 megawatts this year. So next year we will reach our first target of 100% of our electricity coming from renewables, which we will be delighted about, and you'll probably hear in the press and the news. But there's a more fundamental set of requirements that we need to put in place if we're going to address the marine energy ambitions. And here you can see a list of infrastructure that's needed to support a gigawatt of wave or tidal technology. And we believe this list, you could take it anywhere in the world and you would need all of these things to make wave and tidal energy work. What you can see on the left-hand side is where we think we are. The green dots are the things that are going well, where the investment's taking place. The yellow dots are the places where we're not doing so well. So we're making progress. But the total bill that comes with this level of investment is £5 billion. Now, at the moment, I mentioned the 200 million that's gone into the technology. If you look at the onshore renewables and the grid and other investments, in the last 20 years in Orkney, there's been something like £450 million invested in renewables. So we've invested nearly £500 million. Our total targeted investment is 5 billion, or maybe a bit more than that. So, okay. So if we think now about wave projects and maybe some of the challenges that have been laid out earlier today, a question in my mind is about who should own wave projects. Where is the value really going to lie? And it could lie with the technology providers. It could perhaps lie with the energy market and the utilities. Those are the two most common homes for ownership. But I would also say that the host community may have a role to play if you can mobilize the kind of capital that we've seen in the Orkney example. And the other people that are never really talked about are the service providers. And if you looked at that investment graph or table, you would have seen that there were £12 million invested in boats to service the industry. And it may be that the people who have boats, who have capital invested in the maritime industry, and perhaps even the fishermen, are the people who might invest in this business. And we've now seen fishermen in Orkney sell their fishing boats and buy service boats for servicing the wave industry. So why invest? What are the incentives? And this again was touched on earlier. There's a variety of reasons why you might want to invest in your own local energy supply. It might give you cheaper energy. It might create less volatility in energy prices. It might help with energy security. But it can also be a stimulus to the local supply chain. You can get a return on investment. It can just replace your pension. Some people might want to do it because it helps promote a destination. Tourism is very important to the Atlantic Islands. It could be a great advertisement if Madeira, the Azores and the Canary Islands were carbon neutral on the back of wave energy. And there's also what we see in Orkney as a great personal commitment and interest to renewables. People are making a positive choice to invest in new forms of energy production. And the reason I'm saying it's easy to say, but there's 20 million pounds of investment going in behind it to back that. So it's not just words, it's actually backed up by money. So who has the money? Well, fundamentally, it's the customers, it's us, it's all of us who consume electricity, a lot of it today. We're the people who create the wealth that the utilities and other people invest in. There would be no market if we weren't paying for that electricity. What's happening in Orkney is we're shortcutting all of the other people that are involved in the supply chain and going straight from the customer to the investment. And if you can do that, it creates some really interesting opportunities. And how can that be triggered, started? Well, one of the ways that I think it could be started is by some of the communities that are very rich in marine energy going ahead and creating a permit or a license for a significant size of farm in their territory. So perhaps, again, the Atlantic Islands could look to investing, and I think it would be about €1 million. And in €1 million spent over 28 months, I think could give you a license for, say, 100, 200 megawatt wave farm. That could be technology neutral. It doesn't have to specify what technology is used. In 28 months' time, it might be a lot clearer which technology you might want to put in that place. This is exactly what is happening in Scotland at the moment. SSE and Scottish Power and companies like that are developing sites without technology being defined so that in 2-3 years' time they can develop those projects. So how and why might you do it? There's some numbers here, and I think the presentations will go around, so you'll get these to take away. But basically, it's about payback. And what's happened in the wind scenario is payback came to 5 years' time. And when people started to see a payback within 5 years, they started to say, okay, we'll invest in that. So whether it's through a feed-in tariff or a great resource or a low cost for technology, one way or another, if you want to get public investment, you need to be somewhere in that area. But the other important point is that you can get a local content from the work that's undertaken as well, and that can be an important motivation. So in conclusion, maybe marine energy needs to motivate investment from the local communities and customers directly, as well as for the institutional finance. But it's all dependent, in the end, about investment risk. Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation to be here and to have the opportunity to share with you what we have done on the last years about MSP in Portugal, and also to show a little bit what is the discussion about that matter on the European level, also how it involves the integrated coastal zone management and how are the next steps on that matter. If we look at this picture, we can understand how important is the sea area for Portugal and how huge it's that country and how huge are the challenges and the opportunities that we have on sea affairs and sea area. Of course, if we try to identify all the uses that happens on the sea areas, of course we can miss some of them because there are so many and so new activities that emerge every time, and the research and everything there could happen. Lots of gaps and lots of matters of knowledge that we need to, step by step, getting on the process. So perhaps we are thinking about the puzzle where each piece have a right place, and we need to work all together to put it on the right place along the time. It takes lots of time, it takes a lot of work, and involve all the stakeholders and involve all the levels of the administration. And of course, it makes any sense we speak about the Maritime Special Plan as a process at the strategy level. We can think a little bit what we are looking off when we talk about maritime special planning. It's of course something, it's a tool for helping the decision making. It must be something that involves the social, economic and environmental requirement. It must be instrument that involve all the stakeholders. It cannot be doing by only part or only by the administration. It must involve all the stakeholders as a part of a piece. Also, it is a very important instrument to reduce the conflict between activities and between also the activities and the research. And it must use a common language and must be understood by all the sectors. The good quality of data, it's an aspect that in Portugal we are dealing a little more or every day, because we have a particularity that is, we have a deep sea area that is very important for the Portugal Sea. The maritime spatial planning, it has been done, it started on 2008, and it is a pillar of the maritime strategy for sea. We start to work with all the ministries, and we have involved for the beginning all the stakeholders and all the level of the administration. We have done a first exercise starting on the land area, and it goes until the economic exclusive zone. As we can see also, and as we discussed a lot nowadays in Europe, maritime spatial planning, it cannot be seen as an instrument that goes on the sea-land interface, and of course don't go on land. But we need to think that all the uses that we have on the sea must arrive on land, and lots of the effects that we have on the sea, the coastal activity, have reflects on the sea area. And I have here that picture just to help to understand how it could be that articulation between the two areas and the two territories. We have on the land area a lot of knowledge, a lot of instruments, because for several years we have the tradition to work on the land area, and to know and to understand all the system and all the functions. And we have for the beginning of the 19th, we start to work on the coastal zone management plans, and it was the first instrument that we have that have looked for the interface between land and sea. And also, for very important, if you look to the environmental affairs, we have the Water Framework Directive. More recently, we start to develop and to have some instruments and to look how to organize the sea, all the pressures and all the activities that we want to develop on sea areas, and to have a way to give an answer to all the demands that we have on the economy of the sea. And it starts to appear on the, as I have said, on 2006, the National Strategy of Sea. Then after that appears the Maritime Spatial Planning, the first exercise that's done for the continental area. And we have some other tools like the Maritime Strategy Framework Directive that can give a lot of information about the pressures and all the kind of values of the environment, the maritime environment. In Portugal also we have done some exercise to try to establish that liaison between land and water, also with the national strategy of EasyCM. And if we look at the first exercise that we have done for the Portuguese Maritime Spatial Planning, we have something like that. That is a picture of what are the existing uses. We have identified all the activities with the help of all the sectors, and we can say that is the picture, that is what is now existing, and after that we try to identify what are the potential situations. It's also what all the different sectors aims to see project on the sea areas. we have all the activities so different as aquaculture, fisheries, wind energy, wave energy, petroleum, geological resources, infrastructure, navigation, defense, and so on. We have also the part of conservation in biodiversity, that are the values and the research that support the ecosystem approach that must be present on the Maritime Special Plan. The proposal shows a little bit what it could be as a strategy for the sea, as an instrument to guide what we should do on sea areas, and the instrument that could be look as information of the reference, that what happens, what are the values, what could be the general usage spaces on sea areas. But on the previous, I have talked a little bit what the importance of the articulation between MSP and EZCM. Nowadays, on Europe talks a lot about if we need to have a directive between MSP and EZCM, how is going to be the connections, how can we articulate the uses between these two areas. And for instance, as an example, I can show you how important it is that the liaison between these two areas. With the example that we have with the wind float, it's identified on the MSP as an existing situation because it was a pilot area for energy offshore. We can install the turbine that it is now as a test area. We need to identify where is the area to be installed the cable. In that example, the cable, it was there. Also, we have to understand how that cable reach to the land area, and how the instruments of the management of the coastal territory says about that use. And so it also we use the public domain, we use the private domain, and we need to understand how we can articulate all that kind of instruments that are in fact important for the use of the sea. Just to finish and for reflects for what we want to on what we expect to be the maritime special plan in Portugal, and what we have done so far. We have the MSP as a strategic level. It must be adaptive anytime if depends on the new uses, new needs, new knowledge about the sea, about the new technologies that comes, how we can monitoring the human activity in the environment, and also how can it fits the adaptive system for the management, and of course to give response on economic, environment and social to let's grow a blue economy, support on marine resources use, and environmental and biodiversity. Thank you.